You're listening to the Snob OS podcast, the podcast for Apple snobs. Hey, this is Nika Montfort, aka Tech Savvy Diva.
Yo, this is Terrence Gaines, aka Brother Tech.
And welcome to the Snob OS Show, the show for Apple snobs where we talk all things Apple and then some. Welcome back, everybody, to this week's show. We definitely want to thank you for tuning in. Head on over to our website, snoboscast.com. You can get some details about the show, find our links to follow us on social media, interact with us there. Also, you can become a Patreon supporter to get to watch the show live and early and get some exclusive content. You can find all that on our website, but you can also go to patreon.com/snoboscast to get those details as well. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and jump into this week's show. We're going to start with the Lowdown, where we talk all things Apple. Kicking it off this week, Goldman Sachs CEO basically said during their earnings call that, hey, this thing with Apple is not really working for us. We don't know if we want to keep doing this. To be specific, he said, quote, "We have a contract with Apple to run that partnership until 2030. Although there's some possibility that it won't continue until that time frame." Solomon told analysts on the earnings call, the Apple Card dragged down Goldman Sachs' return on equity by 75 to 100 basis points last year. But he said they hope, quote, that will improve in 2025 and 2026. So it sounds like to me, he's trying to cut out about 5 years early by doing something this year or next to basically have the Goldman Sachs cut their losses and their connection with Apple and the Apple Card. So we've heard about this before, but it looks like it's getting closer to coming into fruition.
Yep. I think we all knew that Goldman Sachs was not feeling Apple, but he says the story reports that they are losing money, basically. Mm-hmm. But is it that they're losing money, or is it that they're not making as much money as they thought they were going to make with this partnership with Apple? And what I mean by that is the fact that not Apple customers, but just people who use credit cards in general, mm-hmm. Getting into that business, you have to deal with people who won't pay their bill. You're gonna have to deal with people who fake transactions, say they bought mm-hmm. something, try to get a refund, whatever the case may be. You know, all the things that go with issuing credit cards to consumers, right? I wonder if it was that, or was it that Apple credit card users, similar to Apple users, take care of their credit and take care of their finances, so Goldman Sachs couldn't hit them with fees upside the head like you normally can, because mm-hmm. Apple credit card holder, in my opinion, and I could be completely off base, but they are a different type of customer
than your average credit card
user, right? So yeah. I'm thinking Goldman Sachs planned for, we about to make all this money on these fees,
late fees,
and late fees, and yeah. all the and people not paying their bill on time, so they can rack up the interest. Mm-hmm. Apple credit card users, I'm just assuming, myself example, I'm an mm-hmm. Apple credit card user. Mm-hmm. I run up the credit card, I pay it off at the end of the month. No mm-hmm. fees. I run up the credit card, I pay it off at the end of the month. No fees. So Goldman Sachs ain't getting no more money off of me outside of whatever little processing goes involved into swiping my card. Outside of that, mm-hmm. Goldman Sachs ain't getting no money from me. And I'm pretty sure that's the case for a lot of credit card users. So as a result, Goldman's like, wait a minute, we ain't racking in all this cash like we thought we was going to do, on top of some people charging back and disputing transactions and default. You add those together, Goldman ain't making the money that they thought they was going to be. Like, hey, wait a minute, let's get up out of this. Instead of, let's figure out how to make it better. Let's improve processes. Hell, let's lay off some people. They're like, we need to get rid of this whole thing.
Yeah. And I think you may be onto something because adding to that, a lot of Apple users, I know for me, I'm an Apple Card user as well. I pretty much use that card for my big Apple purchases.
Yep. And that's about it.
And that's about it. I made to keep, things, moving. I have a couple of, I heard this tip for credit cards that you don't really use a lot. Put like your Netflix subscription on there, or small something things cheap. Like that. Yeah. Something cheap that just keeps you put all your subscriptions on that. Say all your streaming subscriptions. What that may be $100, $150 a month. You put it on there every month, pay it off every month. And that builds your credit, and it shows like, hey, they're paying this balance off every month. They're great. Let's up
credit card companies do not make money off of responsible people.
They do not want that. And I think one of the other things is also, I'm wondering if Goldman Sachs went into this because I don't know if they went in with their eyes fully wide open going into the credit card business. Because I think this may be their first foray into credit cards.
I would assume it wasn't. I would assume that it wasn't. I'd be surprised if it is, but I'm not shocked that this is the end result as a result of them getting into credit cards for the first time with a name as big as Apple. It'd be one thing if they partner with a smaller company or try to roll this thing out and see if it works and then pitch to Apple. But they were kind of like, if you're right, not only are this is the first time them getting into the credit card game, they're getting into the credit card game with a name as big as Apple. So if you ain't prepared, things go wrong fast.
Yeah. And I just kind of did a quick Google search and it looks like this is their first foray into it. It doesn't look like they have any other credit card business. They're in the
personal
more of
loans,
the investment,
so
finance. Yeah. That type of thing. So yeah, I think they may have gone into this with their eyes not fully open on what this business means and with whom they are doing, this business with. I will say in the article, it also states, I think this is from 9 to 5 Mac, JP Morgan Chase is reportedly a prime contender to take this on. I initially thought maybe American Express, because this sounds like something American Express may be, kind of into, but it looks like it's going to be potentially JP Morgan Chase. So we'll see how that works.
Yeah, I mean, again, they've got time, right? Like you said, the 2030, I'm surprised it went that long. I thought it was going to be like 5 years.
Yeah.
They ran it all the way out to 2030. So
it was like 10 years? Because we've had these cars like maybe 4 years. So maybe it was like a 10-year type of partnership.
Yeah. The team at JP Morgan negotiating the deal wants to pay less than the full face value of the roughly $17 billion in outstanding balances in the Apple credit card program. The people said credit card portfolios often sell at par or for a premium for the total loans, while accounts that have high delinquencies or some other flaw can sell at a loss. Apple has both subprime exposure and terms associated with its current program that could be costly to take on for any issuer. So maybe there's something in there that I was wrong about your average Apple credit card user. Maybe they are just as janky as all the other average credit card users. And JP Morgan's like, yeah, we ain't trying to pay all that.
That's a lot of outstanding debt. Yeah. So let's head on over to the next thing. Could potentially, with the iPhone 17 that's supposed to come out later this year, one of the things that Apple has been wanting to do one of, the long-standing design features of Apple's longtime chief designer, he's no longer there, was basically having a single slab of glass on the iPhone. So no need for, dynamic island. We have our Face ID, all those things. They have sensors, and that kind of breaks up the flow of the front of the phone. And one of the issues was being able to embed some of the features that you actually have to have sensors for built into that glass. One of those things is embedding Face ID. So you don't actually have to have that sensor. Well, apparently, very recently, Apple has been granted a new patent that basically makes it seem as if Apple may have finally solved their problem as it relates to putting the Face ID actually in the glass and not necessarily behind the screen, not necessarily in the, the little notch that kind of breaks up the prettiness of the phone. They tried to resolve that with the dynamic island, even making trying to make the dynamic island even smaller. But with this particular patent, it is going to, like I said, give you that seamless kind of all screen, nothing else look. And this patent is suggesting that they remove certain subpixels and associated wiring to allow better infrared light transmission through the screen. So there's a bunch of technical jargon in this article as it relates to how this infrared lighting works, and how it's transmitted through the glass. But it sounds like this patent that they just got approved or went through the pipeline may be the solution to this embedding problem with the screen.
Yeah, I don't know. What outside of coolness, outside of innovation, I'm not sure I'm sold on putting Face ID behind the phone screen, because I don't know what the advantage of doing that outside of just the whole screen.
Aesthetic. Yeah.
Right. Aesthetically speaking, the whole screen. You get used to things, and maybe that's my problem. I adapt to things quicker than like, hey, this needs to change. Right. I'm curious to know from Apple what benefit putting the Face ID behind the screen actually does, like you mentioned, outside of being aesthetically pleasing to people looking at the screen. I think most people, like I mentioned, have gotten used to it. So it's kind of like, does it save, manufacturing? Does it, cancel the need to have the sensor separate if the whole screen is a sensor or a pixel, whatever the thing is? I'd be curious to know what benefit Apple gains from putting the Face ID behind the screen.
I wonder if the benefit is essentially, one of those kind of vanity things where this has long since been one of the things that Apple designers have wanted to do,
figured out how to crack.
Right. They finally figured out how to crack it. One thing I know about engineers, especially being one, if there's a problem we have, it's like a dog with a bone. I will not let it go until I have it figured out. And maybe they finally have it figured out, and the return on investment, the cost benefit, the cost value to the consumer, it's like, okay, not a big deal. But to Apple, it's like in the article says, it's like he said it was like his holy grail of design. If it's one of those things where it's purely like, this is something we've been working on forever, we've been trying to figure it out, and we finally cracked the code, and we have to put it in. Personally, I think it would be kind of cool, but at the risk of some greater innovations that they could be putting their effort to.
That's true.
I would prefer the newer stuff, because now screen real estate, these phones are huge now. They're super thin. You have the little notch that people like, it's not that big of a deal. I would much rather prefer Apple spend time on innovating something new.
Like
But
the like the like your air power mat. Focus on that.
right. If you're gonna drop something,
Right.
I
Pick
mean,
something up. Yeah.
right. You've shown that you're willing to drop something. You dropped my air power mat. You're willing to do that. So
But you
why
can't
is
let
it,
this Face ID
you
behind the
cannot
screen
let
die.
this go. You can't let this go. So I get they probably invested a lot of time and money, but again, at the same time, Apple has a lot of time and a lot of money. So I don't think, to me, it wouldn't seem as if it would be, this grand achievement. It may get a little bit of fanfare, but compared to what other types of innovations they could be coming up with out in that R&D lab, to me, this is kind of,
Like fixing their home pods.
please fix the home pods, making more sustainable power cords, help us out, give us practical things. I think a lot of times people think innovation are these grandiose things, which are cool, but a lot of times people just want some functionality, things that they use every day to work really, really well. Make that happen, and you'd have a lot of happy people.
Right.
All right. The last story in the lowdown, another data leak. But this time, this particular data leak was regarding location. So this company, Gravy Analytics, claims to be one of the largest data brokers, found this data breach last week. I believe it was like around January 4th. And the leak contains leaked data points from smartphone apps. So these are apps that came from Candy Crush, which is super popular, dating apps, which are super popular, pregnancy tracking, ovulation, period apps. And it's one of those things where the hackers that did this, they kind of sent like a little sample of, hey, this is kind of what we found and are captured. So they published, again, like I said, the hackers did a sample data set that contained more than 30 million location data points. Now, these aren't just regular data points. Some of these are extremely sensitive, including from the White House, from the Kremlin, from the Vatican, from military bases worldwide, in addition to being able to track individual people's movement with extreme precision. In this article in Cult of Mac, one of the security experts who looked at this data said that they could follow a single person's journey from New York to their home in Tennessee. The sheer, worth of this data,
yeah, right.
the amount and then the type of data that you can track somebody across the country from New York to Tennessee, essentially almost from the top of the East Coast to the bottom of the East Coast into the South. And it's one of those things where it's really scary to know that not only did this happen, and it didn't just happen on iPhones, it happened on Androids as well. Why this particular story is in the lowdown is because when Apple did the iOS update, I think it was, we're on 16 now, I think it was iOS either 14 or 15.
We're on 18 right now.
We're on 18.
Yeah.
So maybe it was 16 where this
yeah, that sounds about
this
right.
feature, I think it was 16. The feature where every time you open an app, when you first download it, it initially asks you, ask app to track or not, is essentially what it does. And that's every single app. So many people were so pissed off about this, especially, and I think more than anybody, Facebook, because this means if you say, sure, why not? Because the wording is kind of funky. They can track you when you leave. You can go to Facebook and then you leave Facebook, but they can still follow where you're going to sell you things, to get you targeted ads. And
to listen to you. Now,
yes.
I'm not a tinfoil conspiracy theorist, but I guarantee you there have been times to where I've been having a conversation with somebody who's near me. I look up my phone. I go into, since we're talking about Facebook, I go scroll Facebook, and lo and behold, the thing that I was talking about is popped up in my feed. So again, there is something to websites, apps, phones, devices are listening to you. They're listening to you. They're tracking you to, in theory, offer you a more personalized experience, is what all of them say. In reality, they want to track you, not because they nosy, because they use that data to say, look how accurate and precise our data is, because we can track this person from New York to Tennessee. And me as a brand, as a company that wants to advertise on Facebook, I want the most accurate and precise data as possible, so I can model my ads to you, not y'all,
but to you, Terrence Gaines, to you, Nika Montfort, specifically to you, what you want.
To you.
So,
you know.
So I bring this up as to why it's in the Lowdown instead of in maybe second string. It's because the Ask App to Track feature that Apple has on their devices, if you have the correct update, it basically gives
you out.
It
completely.
Basically, and it gives iPhone users an advantage over Android users, because again, this breach happened across both Android and iPhone. Based on the security expert, even though if you listen to our show or you are somewhat versed in what's going on in the tech space, this particular feature, it gives users a unique layer of protection against the specific type of data breach that these people are exposed to, location data. And that's basically what this feature does. You say no. And I was with a friend over the holiday, and we were out somewhere getting dinner, and we were looking at something. She's like, oh, let me show you XYZ on this website. So she goes to it, and it pulls up the whole cookies thing. And she's like, oh, and she just clicks OK, or accept cookies. I'm like, no, you never accept them. And she's like, well, I was like, no, you never accept the cookies. Never, never, ever, ever. When you say no, when you don't know anything, say no.
Because they're not going to not let you on the website, because they're trying to get your money. So you saying deny all cookies, they're not going to be like, sorry, we can't show you anything on our website. They're going to show you the stuff anyway.
They're still going to show you.
But now
they're going to show you, and they can track you. So it's one of those things where we'll talk about a little bit later in For the Culture, when you talk about innovations, that Apple has, this particular feature, it shows you right there, hey, and again, it's not the most sexiest thing. Like I was just saying earlier, it's not some, futuristic, thing. It's simple. Yeah. Not simple.
There's no deep, you got to go deep, 3 layers deep into some settings.
Yeah. It's not, super sexy, but it's practical, that people want to make their lives easier. And clicking this, no, do not track me. No, ask app.track. So it's one of those things where people talk about a lot. We've said it before, how expensive Apple products are. But you get things like this built in natively that helps limit your exposure to these types of leaks. So,
because who didn't see stuff like this coming with a major company that claims to or does hold a lot of our data? Who didn't see them getting hacked or breached coming? Because everybody gets hacked and breached now, because like we've mentioned time and time again, data is the new gold. And everybody wants to get it, and they'll do whatever they got to do to get it. But on the flip side, they are not as gung-ho on protecting your data. They'll get it all day long. They'll ask for it. They'll request it. They'll sucker you into thinking you need to approve it or click OK in order to see what's behind the wall. They'll figure out all kind of schemes
Yeah.
to get that in there. But on the back end, protecting the data once they've got it,
and all you get is, I'm sorry, here's some credit monitoring for your trouble.
Right. How many times have I gotten those emails?
Oh,
How many?
Jesus.
I should be able to use the credit bureaus for free for the rest of my life.
Right.
But this was, who didn't see this coming? Everybody's getting breached. But like you mentioned, by Apple putting that simple question, anytime you download a new app or open an app for the first time or open it after a while, and it says, do you want this? I'm paraphrasing. Do you want this app tracking your data? You can click ask app not to track. You click that, you're done. You don't have to, like I mentioned, you don't have to go into no settings. You don't have to, learn how to use websites or apps differently. And that came in handy for this specific story, because all of us who are repeatedly, consistently saying, ask app not to track, while we are not completely invisible from this breach, our data ain't as
our visibility is limited.
Right. As it relates to, Android or whomever else that's included in this breach.
It's one of those things, if you think back to it, back in the day when they did infomercials, the infomercial with the lady with the red hair, set it and forget it. Mm-hmm. You click this ask app not to track and then forget about it. You don't have to worry about it anymore. I will say in this particular article in Cult of Mac, they did put a little bit of a note in there, and I do want to make this known as well. Full transparency. This company that found this breach, Gravy Analytics, they were recently had regulatory actions from the FTC, Federal Trade Commission, that was launched against them. So the FTC has banned the company and its subsidiary from collecting and selling Americans' location data without explicit consumer consent. So I did want to say that while this company did find this particular leak, they do have some regulatory issues as well. Again, bad on them for that, but at the same time, they were able to find this particular breach. So
it's like,
the more you know.
It's like, don't shoot the messenger, but it's kind of like, y'all got some problems on your own. So how convenient of y'all to dig up somebody else's problems. It's like,
right.
I don't know, but it is what it is. So we found out about the data anyway. Yep. So I guess you can't shoot the messenger in this case.
What is it? They say, eat the meat and spit out the bones. And there you go. Next up, let's head into second string where we talk other tech. TikTok. We've been talking about this TikTok ban since, I know at least since last year sometime, with, people trying to shut down TikTok because China. Well, the ban, it's a few days away. January 19th is the one day before Martin Luther King Day and the other stuff that's going on. It is set to, the ban is set to go into effect on the 19th of January if the Supreme Court does not intervene.
Or Congress.
Congress, yeah. So I think it went to the Supreme Court to make a decision. And so now it's back to the congressional body of the United States. So TikTok has said that they would not sell the app to a U.S. company.
I don't blame them. I wouldn't either.
I wouldn't either. The whole thing was they wanted to kind of basically break off a part of TikTok from the rest of ByteDance, from the rest of the worldwide TikTok, and only sell the U.S. portion. And it had to be sold to a U.S. company. I don't blame them. I'd say, get the hell out of here with that. But they will shut down if Congress doesn't intervene, or if Congress doesn't intervene, come Sunday night, no more TikTok. Right. And what this means is, if there is a shutdown, if nothing happens between now and Sunday, no new downloads. So if you go to and this is for both Google Play Store and the App Store, you won't be able to download it. There won't be any other updates. I've seen a couple of things kind of floating around. I haven't been able to confirm it, where they're saying that the app, that some things are saying that it'll still work, but you won't get any updates and no one else can download it. And then I saw another article and some other chatter that it'll just cease to work at all. If I was China, I'd be petty. I'd just shut it down. Nobody had access.
Right. Well, it's not ByteDance or TikTok. It's Apple and Google, because a lot of the app updates that we don't see, that kind of update on their own, or, you know, we manually go in and do it when we need something, right? A lot of those updates make the app officially able to run on Google Play and iOS. So it's not just, oh, we made emojis, or, oh, now you can 200 characters to comment, or now your videos can be 18 minutes long. It ain't those kind of updates. It's like security updates that if we don't update this app, we can't run on iOS or Google Play. And since the app can't update, they are now, this is in theory, they are now out of compliant. They're non-compliant with Apple and Google. So if they're not compliant,
terms of service,
right, that violates the terms of service. They shut them down. So the idea that, oh, I can still use it, I just don't get any new features. No, those features a lot of times permit or allow TikTok to be on the Play Store, you know, the Play Stores, Apple and Google. And without those updates, they don't get the requirements, and therefore they can't run. Not necessarily just are inoperable because the technology is old. It's because they have to do the updates, or else they're non-compliant, and you can't run when you're not in compliance, right?
And that automatically says, you know, we got to kick you out of the App Store.
Right.
So there is one particular senator, Senator Markey. He's introducing legislation that would extend the deal. So it would give TikTok and the US another 270 days to figure things out. So it's one of those things where I don't think it's gone through, you know, go and check out Schoolhouse Rock if you don't know how a bill's passed. It hasn't gone through those steps yet. I think he's just introducing it and getting it written. And again, they only got a couple days, because we're recording on Wednesday. By the time some of you listen to this, it'll be Friday. It's the weekend. You know how people in Congress is like, am I working?
Deuces.
It's the weekend, and there's something going on Monday, and we're trying to get our party together.
Side note, so crazy. The government shutting down, coronavirus, you know, all these major abortion bans. If all of that stuff happens on the time that Congress is out,
not in session,
it ain't happening. They'd be like, well, see you on Monday.
Oopsies. And it's up to the bodies of Congress to call the people who are in leadership. So that would be Mike Johnson in the House. I'm not sure who it is in the Senate, because Kamala had to do all the tie breaks. So I guess Durbin is technically the head of the Senate. I don't know. Either way, whoever's the head of the legislative body that makes up Congress, House of Representatives, and the Senate, they have to be like, hey, y'all, you got to come on back down to the place, because we got some stuff to do. If those two people don't call their people back, like, I'm out. I'm on vacation. You know, I've gone back to my home district, or I've gone to Hawaii, or wherever the case may be. So it's one of those things where it's like, and like I said, there's something happening on Monday that I don't care about, but some people do. So they're trying to get their outfits together, their parties, their doodads and their things together. And they're like, they're not thinking about this.
So, my thoughts on TikTok banning. If I believe that the ban won't go into effect on Sunday. I believe that Congress will do this extension, this 270-day extension. because they want to. You see it with Facebook, you see it with some of these other companies. They are adjusting, and I'm use that word lightly. They are adjusting to the
quote
fact
unquote
that,
adjusting.
right, to the fact that Donald Trump is the next president. So we got business as usual. We got to figure out how to make this country run, or this company run. So we're going to have to, work with the office of the president, right? So as a result of that, they probably will extend it to 270 days. The linchpin of extending it is you can only, well, not only, that only 270 days only gets us to the end of this year, right? Mm-hmm. Trump can't kick the can down the road. Well, he could, but doing this extension,
he's going to have to make a decision.
He's going to have to figure something out between now and 270 days, right? The linchpin to that is ByteDance saying, we're not selling to no American company. If the Trump and Congress, whomever, cannot convince ByteDance to sell off the U.S. version of the company, the only other option is to ban it, because they're not, and because
or take it back, or take back the ban and say, my bad.
Right, which the whole point of Trump wanting to have it extended is so he can fix it during his term and say, look what I did, America, kids.
I got you TikTok back.
I got you TikTok back. The only way that works, the way it's currently set up now, and I don't see any other way to change it, is if ByteDance sells the American part. They're not selling it because, one, I ain't giving up my money like that. Number two, I'm petty. I will cut off my nose. I will cut off my nose to spite my face.
Slice and dice.
Right. So it sounds like ByteDance is on a similar path. We're not selling off the company because not only do they want to sell off the company, they want them to give up the algorithm, which what makes TikTok so
that's
addictive.
The proprietary part. That's the money maker.
ByteDance ain't giving that up. They're not giving it up. I wouldn't give it up. So,
and they don't like that man no way. So,
Right. While I do believe it is far-fetched, or not, while I do believe, while I don't see a world where TikTok doesn't exist, I can't think of another way to make this happen outside of creating a clone or a competitor or whatever the case may be and get people off of TikTok. Because one thing that they're doing out of spite, because China, right? Surveillance, right?
Communist state.
Not just that, just they're trying to show that they're tough. Again, the TikTok ban, the whole reason for it is to show China that they can't
who's boss.
Right. We're trying to show them who's boss. They can't just,
but we owe them so much money. They are the boss.
That's not the conversation I'm having right now. They want to show American people that they are tough against China, right?
Foreign entities. Yeah.
Right. What people are doing to thwart all of that is they are moving off of TikTok and going to another Chinese app.
So an actual Chinese app.
So it's like, all right, y'all are running out of favor from the people, from everybody.
From your own people.
Right. Because we as in non-politicians, regular users of TikTok, we're like, all right, so since you claim that you got to get China out of here, right? Okay, show us how bad you really want to do it. Let's get rid of all the Chinese apps. So you're going to have to get rid of, what is it, Redbook or whatever the app is called? Red Note. That's the app that everybody's going to. Y'all really going to have to show us that y'all are really trying to get China out of America's backyard. And just get rid of TikTok ain't going to work. Y'all got to do a whole lot of other stuff. Mm-hmm.
Right. So somebody posted a graphic of basically the equivalent of all the popular US apps, the Chinese version of that. Mm-hmm. So it was like maybe 15 different apps. So it's like their version of WhatsApp, their version of Instagram, all of our prime apps. They showed the Chinese version because people were like, we're going to go over there. We're going to get all the Chinese stuff. So it's one of those things where they're going to have to get rid of a lot of stuff. And I don't think they want them problems. Because again, if I was China, I'd say, oh, you want to play these games? Exactly how many trillions of dollars do you owe us? Yeah, run me that check real quick.
Yep.
Like in a month. Thank you.
Yep. So America, all that to say, America really doesn't have a lot of leverage outside of the threat that the app be banned. And
It's
if
a lot of
ByteDance
hemming
is
and hawing.
right, and if ByteDance is like, all right, ban it. That's where they at now. We tried to work with you. We created the Texas thing. There was a Texas movement. I forget the actual title of it. Basically and essentially, TikTok was on this campaign to show Congress, to show elected officials, and to show American people that the app is safe. It is a subsidiary of a Chinese company, but American people run it. Let's show you all the ways that we protect data and all this whole campaign that they went on. We tried it. Y'all said, no, this ain't good enough. So, all right, ban it then.
Okay.
So now we
see how that works for you.
Right. And I don't think with Trump, Trump and his team, they, won the election, but they're still trying to figure out how to reach these young folks. And their thing was, hey, we're going to utilize social media. Well, if you take social media away, you ain't going to do nothing but the opposite of turn these young folks
piss a bunch of people off, because all these kids are on TikTok and Snap. They over there on Snapchat and they're over there on TikTok. And if you take their ability to do their tiki-taki dances, you're gonna have a problem. And they are going to revolt. We've already seen Gen Z in action on the political front, and you take away their TikTok, good luck, buddy. Good luck. All right, so that is going to wrap it up for Second String. Let's head on over into For the Culture, where we talk about things that are going on around us. And your boy, Mark Zuckerberg, has basically turned into a red pillar. He has given this 3-hour interview with your other boy, Joe Rogan. So this particular article that I put in the show notes talks about how he has all of these things against Apple. Apple's been living off of 20 years of innovation from one thing, the iPhone. They haven't done anything other than the iPhone. They're so bad. Their products suck. Ours are better. We could do more. All these things. And we all know that Zuckerberg is still pissed off about something we talked about earlier in the show, this Ask App to Track feature.
That data privacy messed up. They reorganized a lot to get around that data privacy that Apple unleashed on, I want to say iOS 16. I'm pretty sure. I think it was
iOS 16. Yeah, he is still pissed about that. And so that has, what do they call it? Radicalized him, into this red pill kind of guy, even though I think he was already probably one of those kind of guys. But, he talked a whole bunch of crap about Apple. He talked about the Vision Pro as compared to the Ray-Ban smart glass things they got, the Oculus Quest, the RCS blue bubble, red bubble, because, he had a fit about that. Took an article out in the paper about that. Talked about all these things of how, Apple isn't as great as it used to be. And I mean, bro, have you seen your products? But I digress. You changed your whole company's name because you thought your metaverse was going to be the next big thing. And that went fizzled. But the biggest thing that I want to talk, because we all know that the stuff about Apple and Facebook and, who's the top dog and all those things, we already know that. But what I wanted to talk about from this interview is the true, real red pill stuff that he was talking about. He was talking about how, tech companies need more masculine energy. They've let in feminine energy come in and
he really said
neuter. To neuter, the space. Talking about how they got to get rid of, those types of things. And he just recently announced that they were going to lay off a bunch of people after they've already laid off a bunch of people.
Get rid of people who are not meeting their got it.
Right.
Got it. Yeah.
But he had a whole conversation around the DEI stuff, which, we already know what that means. And Facebook recently announced they're rolling back all of their DEI initiatives. But it's one of those things where he goes onto the site, does this 3-hour interview with Joe Rogan, who has had some very, I won't even say questionable, some very stupid people who are just making things up, and causing harm, and feeding into this whole manosphere. The white man is being taken down. They're the most oppressed. Everybody's being mean to them. And the fact that he's come out and said these outright, just, I don't even know the word for it. Just, he's just really gone down this whole, radicalized right-wing type of thing, because again, he's donating money to Trump's inauguration. Initially, I thought it was because I know all the other tech billionaires have done that. It was just announced that Tim Cook is going to the inauguration.
You got to play the game, baby.
My initial thing was, they're just playing the game because they know they got to give this $1 million. $1 million is nothing to these people. It's like $1 for, regular people. And my initial thought was, I get it. I don't like it, but I get it. They are, trying to grease the wheels so that this idiot won't, come after them. But going on Joe Rogan for 3 hours and talking about this whole masculine energy and feminine energy in the workplace. First of all, bro, you are setting yourself up to get a class action lawsuit against you if you're doing these types of things in your company. It's not just DEI. These are practices that are discriminatory practices that there are laws against, and you're openly talking about it. And I think people have really, we thought they showed their colors when President Obama was first elected, and then when the orange idiot came in the first time. Now the veil is completely dropped. That thing is on fire over in a corner somewhere. So I wanted to get your thoughts on this, because it seems as if, it's not like we didn't know people had these types of thoughts and ideas, but previously in the past, they had the decency to try and do it slick and undercover. Now they're just out and loud and proud about it.
So somebody said, I don't know who said it, and I'm going to butcher the phrase. They said, I like my racism out in the open. Right. To your point that you mentioned, you mentioned that, Zuckerberg may have always had these thoughts and feelings or whatever the case may be, but now he's putting them on display. Right. To the first point that I'll make, I would prefer these people state who you are, because now I know, all right, and this is all right. So this is who you are. You've stood up loud and proud of who you are. All right, cool. Now I know how to deal with you. Before, you double speak and hide behind policy and hide behind, regulations and, hide behind, profits and, valuations and whatever the case may be. No, I want you to come out and be like, this is who I am. This is what I'm trying to do. This is what always I envisioned my companies to be. And this is how we're going to work. Right. So I, at the very least, silver lining. Now we know who you are. Now we know how to deal with you. If I want to leave Facebook, if I want to leave WhatsApp, if I want to, whatever the case, sell my MetaQuest or whatever the case may be. Now I know how to deal with you. Right. Because you've said it. Now I can respond. So if I respond, you can't be like, oh, well, what I meant. Well, no, this is who you are. This is what you said. That's number one. Number two, I think people like Donald Trump and people like Elon Musk have shown people who maybe think or have the same attitudes. They're seeing it working. They're seeing that being who you are, stating how you feel works. Because Donald Trump
No matter
As
how bad
president,
it is.
no matter how sideways it is, it works. And there's no such thing as an ethical billionaire.
Mm.
All people who have reached that height have done something directly or indirectly, consciously or subconsciously, have done something to where you could question their ethics and morals,
To
right?
disenfranchise people.
Right. You could, Apple, we're Apple fans, but they are low key fighting these blood diamond things over in Africa
The
and the whole continent.
cobalt
Right.
in the
Whatever that
Congo.
is,
Yeah.
Africa's calling them on that. So all that to say, there's no such thing as an ethical billionaire. And I think CEOs and these billionaires have thought that, all right, I need to tiptoe. I need to be quiet. I need to be strategic. I need to, double speak in order to have my company thrive. Well, with Donald Trump and Elon Musk, they have shown you can be whoever you want to be. And there are people out there who will actually appreciate that. So I think this is Zuckerberg saying, oh, so I don't have to be this meek, get along, go along to get along, nice guy that people would assume the owner of Facebook would be. Nah, I want to be Mark Zuckerberg, and Mark Zuckerberg feels this, and he feels that, and he feels this, and he feels that. Not only does he feel those things, he's felt like he had to hold those things back. for the sake of the company. Now he realizes I ain't got to do none of that, Jack.
I can elect my racist, sexist,
Whatever.
homophobic, transphobic.
Whatever
I can
it
let my
is.
freak flag fly. Whatever that flag is, I can let it fly.
I can let it fly, and as long as Facebook, but again, some people do it, but they don't have the leverage.
Yeah.
Elon Musk has the leverage of running several important companies.
When you're rich, you
Right.
have certain things that are going
Right.
to be easier paths for you rather than Joe down the street who,
Right.
Works at, the bank.
Right.
It's
right.
not the same.
Right.
And I think that's where it's going to mess people up.
Right. So he can use Facebook because you can use Meta because not only is it just Facebook, the app, it's Instagram, it's WhatsApp, it is Meta, it's the Quest, it's, all these things. To where it's too big to fail. So he can go out and say,
even if he failed today, he'd have enough money for generations.
So there are some people who are starting to act on or following the lead of some of these, for lack of a better term, trailblazers. I hate to use that word in conjunction.
Negative trailblazers.
Yeah. And people are like, oh, so I can be myself and don't have to worry about the consequences. So he's slowly but surely, rolling out, similar to how Bezos, he divorced his wife and then got all the man now, same thing with Elon Musk.
Got his super tight shirts on.
Right. He bought X and now he can say whatever he wants to do. And then Donald Trump, literally, we ain't got to rehash all the crazy things he's done and said, and is now the president again.
In the highest office in the land.
So it's like, why am I holding back?
Yeah. And so I did find this other article, I'll put it in the show notes, where it says something that's very interesting. It says, one line says, Zuckerberg, who launched his career by rating the attractiveness of women at Harvard University, added that he grew up with 3 sisters and has $3 and wants women to succeed in corporations. And the other quote says, it says, quote, if you're a woman going into a company, it probably feels like it's too masculine. There isn't enough energy that you may naturally have.
This is not just some new enlightenment thing.
No.
Masculinity, patriarchy, just anything, any dominant thing wants to stay dominant. And how they've stayed dominant, according to them, is we have stuck to these things, whatever they are, mostly men, mostly white people, whatever the case may be. What you don't want, what people envision is, okay, if I let this person in, or if I let these policies in, or if I let this culture come in, it's going to wreck everything that I have built. So as being unsure of yourself and actually being there's another trait, self-esteem. I guess we'll call it self-esteem. You are not comfortable enough with what you've built that you feel that it will withstand or even adapt and evolve. Right. You bring more, minorities in, you bring more women in, whatever the case may be, you don't feel that your company will stand those changes. So what do? You get defensive and
you lash out
and you eject those things that you think will quote unquote poison whatever the case may be. And I think with the DEI stuff, people rolling those things back with, all these comments, like you mentioned, Zuckerberg mentioning to Joe Rogan, who, to Joe Rogan's credit, he brings them people on and let them go. He don't interrupt them. He kind of eggs them on. Now, I don't know what kind of person.
And he agrees with whomever is on there.
Whatever it is, he's tell me more about you.
That's interesting.
He gets close to the mic and tell me, and they just go.
How do you go from hosting Fear Factor to this?
Right.
I don't know.
But they just go. So again, this is just Zuckerberg standing in his light.
He's like, I am woman, hear me roar, right, type of thing. And I will say, I'll tack this on. So in the midst of all of these other companies, Amazon, Facebook, Google, Washington Post, all these people rolling back these DEI initiatives, Apple's board recently said, not us. Right. They said in their note to investors, quote, "At Apple, we believe that how we conduct ourselves is critical to Apple's success as making the best products in the world. And we strive to create a culture of belonging where everyone can do their best work." So Apple is basically saying, we're not rolling back our DEI. Costco, who I recently got a membership for, and I went in there and I was amazed. It's not the same as Sam's.
I was thinking about buying their stock recently.
Yeah. They recently said, nope, we're not doing it. We're not doing it. And they keep their costs. The owner, the CEO, he's the sole owner of that company. Yep. And he's like, we're not rolling on this stuff back. We're paying people a living wage. We are keeping our costs the same. And we're not going to benefit from people's pain, especially during like the pandemic. Right. So, I say all that to say is that there are still some companies, even though Tim Cook gave the $1 million to the inauguration fund, even though it's been announced he's going to go to the inauguration, I can still be angry about that. I can still dislike that. And at the same time, I can, full-throatedly, support the company Apple saying, yeah, no, we're not doing this. We're keeping our initiatives that we have around DEI. Because if you notice what's going on with these wildfires, DEI, before we would say DEI, they mean black people. No, DEI means everybody except white men. Because one of the chief, a lot of the people in leadership in the fires are women. And they're white.
The mayor of Los Angeles is
the mayor, black lady. The fire chief, a couple of emergency somebody. They're all women. And again, Karen Bass, who is the governor, the mayor who's black, right. The other ones are white. And so on these shows, they're talking about, look at these DEI hires. Babes, they're just not talking about black people.
Well, so
they're talking about women as well. And that includes women who are not black.
Right. And I think people who are spouting stuff like this are dependent on the intended audience to not do the additional research to find out what DEI actually is. What they are banking on is for them to say bad word, and the people go along with it. Like woke. They put woke in front of everything. It ain't even got nothing to do with being woke, at all. They just say it because they know that it's
going to trigger.
It's going to trigger. So they're they're trying to, and successfully doing it, so using DEI is the next trigger word, for we don't like this because it's going to put us out of a job, not make things better, not improve people's quality of life, not, include everybody, but this is going to put me out of a job. So it's a bad word.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Enough of that. Let's head on over to the hookup for our tech tip of the week.
Yep. So Apple in recent iOSs used to have it, but they have removed the volume slider for when you open up media apps. Think of Tidal, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music, right? All of these things play media, whether it be audio or video. Apple removed the ability for you to control the volume on the lock screen. What you have to do right now is use the volume buttons on the side of the phone or unlock the phone and then use the volume controls in the control center. Well, what Apple has done recently with iOS 18.2, and you have to have iOS 18.2, is they have put the ability back to add the volume slider on the lock screen just for content that you're playing. So if you're playing a YouTube video, or YouTube may not be the best example because they don't let you play stuff in the lock while the phone is locked. You got to be in the app, on the app using it. You leave YouTube, that video is gone, Jack. So
you got to be over here in our stuff. Yep.
Right. So bad example. But any other app, let's use Spotify, for example. You play a playlist, play a song or whatever, and then you shove your phone in your pocket because you want to lock the screen. With iOS 18.2, they have added the ability for you to add that volume slider back on the lock screen. So when you look at your phone, you can just slide the slider at the bottom of your lock screen versus trying to get your finger up and do the volume or unlock the phone, right? So my hookup for the week is how to add the volume slider to the lock screen of your iPhone. Like I mentioned, you have to have iOS 18.2. If you have that, basically what you do is you open the settings app, you scroll down to accessibility, then you scroll down again to audio and visual, and then you turn on the option that says always show volume control. If you do that, anytime you're playing music, playing a video, and you lock the screen, if you look at your phone, you can quickly adjust the volume versus messing with the volume controls on the side or unlocking your phone, which defeats the purpose.
Nice. Good to know. Making it easier. That is going to wrap up the show for this week. Brother Tech, where can the people find you?
Sure. You can find me all over the internet at Brother Tech. That's BROTHATECH.
And you can find me at Tech Savvy Diva all over these things we call the internet. Again, to connect, to comment, to share, to support our show, head on over to snubwestcast.com to get all of the details. And with that, we'll see you next week.
Peace.
Bye, everybody.